Okay, so there's a possibility that it might have been quite a while since I touched anything on this series. Yeah, please forgive that one, as essentially just what it has been is I haven't really had much time for this sort of thing. But now that I'm finding myself with a little bit more time, I can actually start addressing some of these old things as well. So, and what a great thing to come back to it on. It's time to have ourselves a nice little educational video. By which I mean I have a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. So today's subject is actually going to be about mags. And what these little guys are, they're just the little robots that you can see floating at the corner of your character's shoulder. Now, looking at them, you wouldn't really expect much, but there's a whole lot of depth to these, and as a result, there's actually quite a bit to talk about. They're responsible for a lot more than one would think just from looking at them, and you need to look after them if you want to have yourself something that's nice and effective, and to help your character really flourish. So of course the question becomes, what exactly do you do with mags? And well, the simplest answer to that is you feed them. You actually give them some of your leftover healing items in this case, and it'll actually raise the mag stats. Now here's the big important thing about this. When you're raising the mag stats, it's not really doing anything to the mag itself, but is instead raising your stats. So you actually use the mag to help increase your own character's statistics in a way that you can purely customize to your liking. In order to feed the mag, it's very simple. All you gotta do is bring up the menu for it, and you can feed it up to 3 of your healing items, but you have to feed them one at a time. What it is you can feed them up to 3 of these every 3.5 minutes or so. So if you want to do this as efficiently as possible, have yourself a little timer that reminds you about every 3.5 minutes to feed your mag. And if you keep at this for a while, you can max out the mag before too long at least. So when you look at the mag statistics, you'll see the 4 different types of Def, POW, Dex, and Mind. These are pretty self-explanatory for what they actually increase on your own stats. Def will increase defense, POW will increase attack power, Mind will increase your magical power, and Dex will actually increase your accuracy, so that one's the least obvious of the 4 at least. And one thing to actually let you know about, don't increase Def. If you can help it at all, try your best to avoid increasing the defense levels at all. I'll actually go into more detail why this is in a future video, but for right now, know that it's the most inefficient of the things to level for your mag, and if you can, try to keep it at the starting value of 5. I'm going to avoid going over the stats too thoroughly on this video, as in the future I'm going to actually talk about min-maxing your character, so that's for the really power-gamey plotting for a level 200 thing. But if you think you've screwed up your mag, don't worry about it too much, because you can actually get fresh ones. They tend to drop in the mines area of episode 1, usually on the lower difficulties. We'll be going there in the future. Now, as you actually keep diligently feeding your little friend, you're actually going to end up noticing changes that will happen in the future. And actually the first one will come about pretty quickly. For you see, if you keep feeding your mag, it actually starts to evolve into different shapes, and actually gain certain extra powers as well. There's actually a ton of different mag forms. So even if you've been playing this game for quite a while, there may be ones that you haven't really seen all that often. Usually because the combination of stats that they're actually looking for isn't all that ideal. And when it comes to actually evolving the mags, there's a few different factors that will decide what they turn into. The big ones being what type of character is feeding the mag, what the mag's current stats are, and not only that, but your section ID also plays a part as well. Although that said, there's only 2 different segments for section IDs. It's actually split into 2 different groups. So whenever section IDs get involved for regular mags, the 2 groups are as follows. You have the first group, which is Viridia, Skyly, Purple, Redria, and Yellow Bows. And then you have the section group, which is Greenel, Blueful, Pinkle, Oran, and Whittle. Although these are the 2 main groups, there are certain exceptions for particular rare mags that will have different section IDs in mind. So with the mags, there's actually 3 different forms of evolution with them. You've already seen the berry mag, which actually showed up in the first couple of videos. But then you actually hit at level 10, you hit kind of the larval state, where it'll take on the form that matches whoever was feeding it until level 10, until hitting level 35, where it gets kind of to a little mid-phase, and then at level 50, it actually becomes the full mag. Now there are other mags that exist beyond level 50, but at level 50 you hit kind of the final tier of regular mags at least. Now one thing to be careful of, Depending on the version of the game, the Meg will actually react differently at its level 35 evolution. In most versions of Bloomburst that are still available, it seems to consider the character who evolved at the level 10 as the conditions that it'll use for the level 35 evolution. Although on previous versions, I've seen it actually take the current character into consideration. So with that one, you kind of have to be careful if you're plotting out something specific. The second thing being, once a Meg has hit level 50, it'll actually continue to evolve if it meets new requirements for a different Meg every 5 levels, so 50, 55, 60, etc. It will actually keep evolving at that level 55 or 60, etc. if something else feeds it. So say one character feeds it and it evolves, and then you give it back to another character and you feed it before it hits a new level, it'll end up evolving again. So they're a bit schizophrenic like that, and they won't actually hit a final form at all until they've completely maxed out. And even then, it may change if some other character feeds it at that maxed out level. So they're kind of weird like that. And now, based on what I've talked about so far, you may be wondering, what's the point of aiming for a specific Meg? What makes them so different? Well, there's actually a couple of things that actually separates each Meg apart from one another that I'm going to go over right now. The first one is that every Meg actually has a set of special abilities that it can trigger based on certain conditions. These conditions being when your Photon Blast bar fills, which I'll talk about in a bit, when you enter a boss fight, when you hit 1/10 of your HP or less, and when you outright die. Now, what exactly is considered an ideal Meg is actually going to depend on your character. For anything that isn't an android, though, you'll probably want a Meg that gives you invincibility at all 3 special conditions. When it comes to dying, every Meg that's level 50 or higher has a chance of reviving you, although it's very minor. But if you are an android, though, you may actually want a Meg that actually gives you an attack and defensive buff, such as when the bar fills, or, if you enter a boss fight. Something to give you a little bit of an edge, as androids don't have access to those special abilities to begin with, so it's nice to have the attack and defensive boost when you're by yourself. Now you may be wondering, how in the world are you supposed to know what stat combinations and character combinations you need to get the Meg that you want? Well, thankfully this is the era of the internet, so there are quite a few guides out there to help you out with it, including the Master Meg Gallery on PSO World, as I can show you right here. And as you can see, there are a lot of Megs. A lot of Megs. So, needless to say, it's a little more complex to pick out exactly what you're going to be doing than you would originally think. And the next big thing this is going to help with is picking which photon blasts you want for your particular Meg. Now with this one, I'm going to go into some detail about photon blasts right now. There's actually so many little things with them that they're pretty much going to be a video all of their own. So each and every basic Meg actually has its own photon blast that it will learn when it evolves into that particular Meg. Your Meg can store up to 3 of these photon blasts, and once it learns one, it's permanent, so you can't actually reverse it at all. So if there's 3 particular photon blasts you want, make sure to plot out the exact path of Meg evolution that you're going to be taking, so that way you can get the ones that you want for your character. A basic description of photon blasts, though, is that they're special moves that you can activate once you've taken enough damage or dished out enough damage to the enemies. They're either going to be attacking or supportive moves, depending on which ones you have. Also, to give a quick description of the special abilities that a Meg can use based on those particular conditions I mentioned earlier, the ones that are available is invincibility, as I mentioned before, giving an attack and a defensive buff, as well as casting a healing spell on you. Now, the third is actually the most useless by far, as the thing that I need to note about that is it is based on your character's mental strength stat, which means while it sounds like it would be useful for androids every now and then, it's based on their 0 MST, so it's going to be an absolutely embarrassing heal at best. Really, the stat buffs and the invincibility are the best ones by a significant margin. On top of that, it's really a good idea to try and get a Meg that has invincibility for when you hit down to 1/10 of your HP or less, as this can really save your life in a lot of really, really dangerous situations. And you can even try to use it to your advantage with certain particular bosses, just because of the set amount of damage that they do to you. So, after all that enormous spiel about all the different little things, there's still 2 more stats I have to talk about. These being your Meg's sync percentage, as well as their IQ. Now thankfully these are both very simple. They just have everything to do with your photon blasts as well as the special abilities of the mags. It's really quite simple. Your sync percentage actually determines the strength of your photon blast, and the IQ determines how often your mag's actually going to trigger its special abilities. So, needless to say, try to keep these numbers up as full as possible. The sync maxes at 120%, and the IQ maxes at 200. Now, the thing I need to note is your mag will actually lose 5% sync every single time you die. So, you're never done with them, even when your mag is maxed out. You always gotta look after them. If you keep dying, stop dying. Your mag doesn't like it when you die. Why are you dying? Do you have any idea how much separation anxiety they go through when you're laying on the ground dead? Think of the poor mag! I mean, for heaven's sakes, it floats by your shoulder at all times. You're a faithful sidekick, and you just keep dying on it. Don't do it! You know, all that spiel and whatnot. Alright, now that I've gone and explained all that, is everybody still following? Clear as mud, you say? Okay, good. Time to move on. I have even more to talk about. There's just so many things with mags. There's just no end to it. Well, there's an end to it, but you know, it comes after a very long period of me rambling on for no expected duration. Anyways, so the next thing we need to actually be talking about is, as I mentioned a couple of times before, rare mags. So ones that are non-standard, ones that actually have particular ways in which you have to get them, other than just trying to have specific stats. Now, the big thing with rare mags being, they're permanent. So once you actually do get a rare mag, it's in that form for the rest of its existence. Which, you know, considering they tend to look a lot better than some of the standard mags, a lot of people will usually go for those ones. And there's actually two types of rare mags. There's ones that require a very particular combination of stats and character types in order to create them, and these were added in as of the GameCube version of the game. And then there's ones that are done through what are called mag cells, where they'll have particular requirements for the mag, and if you use this item on them, it'll evolve into a particular mag as well. Okay, so who likes lists? Let me get out the old list, because let me tell you, there's a number of things that I need to list off when it comes to the rare mags for episode 2. In this case, just meaning the ones that the GameCube version of the game added and still exist in Blue Burst. So, what this is it takes into consideration not only your character's type, but also their gender. So whether or not they're a hunter, ranger, or force, and male or female. On top of that, the exact combination of stats required to get the rare mag varies based on section ID, and it's actually been broken down to 3 categories this time. The first one being Viridia, Bluefool, Redria, and Whittle, and for those ones, they require the stat combination to be defense plus dexterity has to equal your power plus your mind. The next category is Skyly, Pinkle, and Yellowbows, and they need to have their defense and power equal to dex and mind. And finally, there's Greeno, Oran, and Purpledom that have to have the defense and mind be equal to the power and dexterity. Now, exactly which rare mag this comes out to just depends on the good old chart that's going to have every single one of them listed, and I'm probably going to slap a picture on the screen right now so you can see it. Maybe even with a dramatic zoom-in effect, because seriously, there's actually quite a few of these things. Now, secondly, the thing to note about these ones is you can't actually get these rare mags until the mag is at least level 100. From that point on, any 5 levels will actually do it. But since we're talking about things being equal here, it's every 10 levels, since, you know, odd number. You can't have equal stats on an odd number. Other than that, though, that's how these ones are determined entirely. And out of all the rare Episode 2 mags, as they call them, the ones you probably see the most often are Sato and Nidra. And the reason for these two is they give you invincibility in all 3 of the special conditions, so why not take them? Out of the 2, people like Sato for the appearance better, and Nidra actually grows in level much faster than Sato, so that's its particular advantage. Other than that, they have no other difference. So if you want something, in this case you want a Scorpion that levels real fast, go with Nidra. And if you want a Sato, which looks like some sort of cat squirrel thing that's, you know, looks cute and whatnot, then go with that one. So after all that huge spiel comes the much more simplistic cell mags. These ones don't have anything particular about them other than you need to make sure to have a mag set up to the specifications required by the cell in order to evolve it into that mag. Now, the thing to know about this course being, it's not going to be terribly obvious what you actually need for it, so make sure to look up that particular cell online at places such as PSO World, so that way you know exactly which mag you need to make first. Now, when it comes to the mag cells, for the most part they're just seasonal drops, meaning there was actually events for a particular time of year in which actually changed the rare Rappy form in the first area of episode 2 to drop different seasonal items. Now, the thing with this one being, there was a lot of different little mag cells in here, some of them very silly, such as, for example, the Kit of Hamburger, which will turn your mag into a floating hamburger that opens and closes all deliciously or something. It looks as goofy as it sounds, and the patty ends up changing color based on what color your mag was. And then there's ones that are, a little more traditional, such as little angel or devil wings, or even tails. So, it's just lots of little silly ones like that, very non-standard things. Blueburst added in its own share of mag cells as well, some of which are much easier to get. Such as, if you have a particular server that drops Rappy feathers, it's not that hard to get a Rappy mag, and they're honestly not that bad, so maybe if you just want to have a cute little miniature Rappy floating around and falling around, sure, why not? There was even some really stupid ones, like little joke ones too, as at one point, there was a mag cell for the Yahoo logo, back when that site was still actually relevant, huh? So, after all these different spiels, I think it's finally time to start wrapping this up. Now, I just want to go over a couple of things to take from this overall. The big thing being, pay attention to your mag. It's a very important little buddy to have carrying around with you. And when it comes to actually getting the mag that you want, make sure to at least take the stats you want into consideration and try to do something that's not too ridiculous, so that way it can help you out on your journey as well. And if you don't care about appearance, go for whichever meets your needs in terms of just the overall abilities and what you wanted to do. If you do care about appearance and don't care about what the mag actually does, then just try to pick one that actually fits the stats that you want. Or if there's a particular mag cell that you want that you can get access to, go with that one too. That's the thing about mags, there's so many different ways to actually go about using them, and a lot of people have ones in particular that they like, so why not just go with the one that suits your needs the best? Now, of course, the other thing to take from this is don't level defense. Don't do it. Don't ever do it. It's such a waste. Do your best to make sure it doesn't go any higher than like 10. It becomes such a waste if you go too high. Really, just try to avoid it. It's one of those things where it can be tricky if you're not doing this for the first time, but it's actually pretty important if you really want to make the most of your character to try and avoid leveling that defense stat. But don't forget, you can always go get more mags in the vines. Now, with all that taken into account, just keep in mind that mags are very important, and we'll be talking about other things with them in the future as well, as they're very important for the photon blasts that I mentioned before, where we're going to go over each of those and what they can do. And finally, their role in min-maxing your character, and the usefulness of actually having mags on hand for if you want to actually go ahead and make more than one character. Hopefully this explanation was at least somewhat helpful and made some sense at least. But the big thing is, I just wanted to give you more of an understanding of the little buddies that's going to be following us around for the entire game. And the thing to note about them is, you can always have more than one, so if you want a mag that specializes in something particular, go ahead and make it. You can swap it around whenever you want. It's one of those things where these mags are about the only thing you have that's super customizable when it comes to your base stats, and it's also the only thing you can change whenever you want. Anything else is going to be a permanent change, so make sure to keep that in mind. Overall though, I just want to thank you for watching my whole nonsense spiel that I've been going on about for far too long now. And hey, join me next time I actually bring up one of these more educational themed videos, where we'll talk about the photon blasts. And with that one, it should be a fair bit shorter, as it's a very condensed subject. However, there's a lot of little neat tips and tricks I want to actually talk about with those ones, as there's a lot more that you can do with them than you would originally think. Now, of course, with all that said and done, the next video is going to be more of an action-paced one. We'll see when I get it posted. It will really depend on how much time I have, and everything else like that. But in the meantime, see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.